to the Rugby Now. I'm delighted to say Mike Ross is with us this morning to try and make some sense of what happened in the scrums. Mike, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
Yeah, good. Like, on the face of it, there's been a big backlash from Ireland anyway about the nature of the scrum penalties, and Mathieu Raynal is being blamed for what happened. Do we need to look at ourselves first, though, and stop blaming the referee and maybe try and understand what we could have done differently in this scenario? Because let's say we were to be refereed like that in a World Cup quarter-final, or, you know, we can dream a semi-final. Come on afterwards, blaming the referee is well and good, but you're out of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was at the game on Saturday. I was kind of in the south stand, so it was kind of difficult for me to see what was going on. But afterwards, I went through them a few times and I had a look. And look, there's definitely stuff we could have done better. You know, a couple of times they were losing engage and taking a step back and readjusting, which helped England do what they wanted. But at the same time, you know, England were creating a kind of a shearing off scenario. So again, just kind of chasing up on the loose head side, and then Sinclair was coming across to try and create a 3-on-2 and shear off to the side. And if a ref isn't refereeing that, it's quite hard to stop. I mean, there's a couple of things you can do about it, but they're you know, it's not guaranteed. So yeah, look at a combination of, like, we can probably be better in our setup and engagement. But there's also, you know, an element of the referee needs to do his job.
Can you explain that England move? So essentially, Genge goes in first, and it takes out the hooker completely, is it?
No, so Genge chases hard up, and he kind of actually, not really directly against Furlong, he kind of goes almost on his outside, and then that creates a pivot in the scrum, and then Sinclair attacks the joint as a result, right? So if the scrum goes like this, they try and break off. So kind of pivoting around Furlong and hopefully squaring up then, and then they march up the field. I mean, if you think back to last year, Ireland did something similar, you know, where England attacked and then Ireland kept their shape and drove straight through.
Is there anything that you can do if you're Tadhg Furlong in that position?
Couple of things, but, you know, they're not guaranteed success. One, you can start crabbing to the right to counteract the rotation that's coming against you. So the whole thing starts going right across the pitch to the right. Another thing is to maybe start angling in yourself, and then, you know, stay square. Don't allow yourself to be taken by the rotation, but you have to really angle across, and then they will break off then. But then you stay where you are, and you're basically two packs marching up against the field in opposite directions. But, you know, those are both, you know, hard to do
and risky enough, I suspect, in that the referee looks for who's going forwards, and it kind of referees on momentum as opposed to the technicalities of it.
Yeah, which is generally what French referees do. They will, if someone looks like they're going forward, they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, let's say we had a magic rewind button and we knew what England were going to do, and we're sitting in the coach's room in advance of the game. What are you saying to the Ireland team about, like, is it more early engagement with the referee? Because Furlong did try a little bit of it across the course of the match, and it didn't seem to have that much of an impact on Raynal. How do you influence the referee to get a better outcome, and how do you actually influence then what England are doing?
Usually you supply footage to the referee prior to the game of things you're concerned about. You know, that doesn't exist in this scenario. Or you can verbally tell them, hey, look, you know, we want a fair contest. We want the scrummage square and straight, and we don't want to be dancing around. But yeah, it is difficult. Like, ultimately, the referee is going to decide how he's going to interpret things, and there's only so much you can do about that. But, like, potentially, I'd like to see us cheat a little bit more. You know, sometimes you have to, you know, make your own decisions. And not be so. If you look at Ireland historically, we've kind of had a very square and straight scrum, and haven't exactly. I don't think I've ever seen Irish back do what England did at the weekend. So I don't see why we shouldn't start doing it. If it's going to be rewarded, why shouldn't we do it?
And like that's interesting, especially in the context of the two props being pretty experienced for Ireland at the moment. So it's not something that they've ever engaged in really, if they didn't resort to it on Saturday.
Yeah, well, it's not really how this Irish scrum is coached. John Fogarty has been doing a pretty good job up until now. And if you look at how Ireland scrum is, it's square, it's straight. They try and dip and push at the same time in the same direction. I've scrummaged in England for a number of years early in my career, and the scrum is seen as like it's free fall. One rule of the scrum: just go forward, don't matter how.
Right, so that kind of is a nice petri dish of, I guess, bending the rules to whatever meets your strengths.
Yeah, well, if you're getting away with it, you're getting penalties. If I was in England's position, I would have done exactly the same thing, and it kept going to where I was getting penalties because it was giving them entries into the game, it was giving them points, it was giving them strength and momentum. So, and if the referee's not refereeing it, then by all means, keep doing it.
Do you think there's a possibility that we didn't get a yellow card because Raynal didn't quite know what he was given the penalties for? That like Eddie Jones afterwards is complaining, that's not exactly a surprise, but that the referee's like, I'm going to just give this penalty here, but I don't really know. I mean, I've had a word with them. I'm not really convinced myself.
Yeah, well, there was no one specific offender, was there? I mean, you're getting penalised for, in Raynal's man, going backwards. So, I mean, there's no one falling to the floor. There's no one, standing up. It was just kind of slewing around and a bit of a merry-go-round, really. And Raynal just decided that it was one or the other's fault.
One of the other things that became a big talking point in advance of the last World Cup when Devon Toner was dropped was the tight head lock. Is that something that we should all be having a conversation again about this week? Is there anything in our in our second row that could have helped prevent, like was Tadhg Furlong a bit of an island?
Well, look, your tight head lock is very important to your scrum. Okay, and look, we lost James Ryan early on, which didn't help. Hendy does play there quite a bit, and he's pretty good. But James is a fairly key component of that scrum. And if you look at the loose head lock, like Tadhg Byrne, he's more of a jumping lock or a six. So he's not like we don't have a Paul Williams in the pack. Who's a bit of a tractor when it comes to the scrum. We don't have I think the last kind of second row scrummaging lock like that be Quinn Roux, who's is over in France at the moment. So we play a quick mobile game, and our pack makeup reflects that.
Is there anything you can do? Is there anybody should we be trying to turn Ryan Baird for the benefit of his long-term future into that, or not?
I don't know. I don't know how we scrummages. So, but look, there's a smart brains trust in the Irish coaching unit, so I'm sure they'll be looking at all the different options. I think that the one big, if you look through the provinces, you probably have someone like Klein who would fit the bill. But does he be able to deliver the rest of the bits and pieces that this Irish team wants? I don't know.
So how does this coaching team go about, I guess, fulfilling your wish there of wanting to see Ireland cheat a little bit more?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do it. Like, there's no point just throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, right? So we've had, up until now, even on Saturday, our scrum success is 100%. And it's the first time I've seen us troubled in a long time. So I'm not going to hit the panic button and just kind of reset everything that we're doing. But perhaps start gaming into a few more scenarios. I mean, every week of training, there's two up packs going at each other, so we can start almost like war gaming. Different scenarios that you see coming up against. And I'm sure that this week they'll be looking at that because Scotland will have been watching that and go, right, we're going to try this, see if it works. But it might never work again, I mean, referee might never get a referee who will permit it.
Yeah, and I guess when you talk about wargaming, I mean, once the Six Nations is done, they're going to zoom out. They're going to look at the summer. They're going to look at South Africa coming along this autumn. They're probably going to look back at a couple of the instances during this year's Six Nations, and France and England in particular. So you've got South Africa, you've got France, you've got New Zealand as potential teams who are going to either be the avenue to dreams coming true for Irish rugby players at the World Cup, or the ones that are going to kill the dreams at the end of next year. So is there any commonality when you look at those three opponents in particular that Ireland can be targeting and saying, listen, we need to get better at X or Y?
Was the Southern Hemisphere teams?
Yeah, the teams we play this year, I guess, later on.
Well, if you look, South Africa probably have the biggest threat in the scrum. If you look at what they did to England in the final couple of years ago, they have, and even the Lions during the year, they have some excellent props. So they're probably going to be the main threat scrummage-wise. New Zealand, they're actually a bit, they scrum pretty much like Ireland. They don't really look for New Zealand trying to play off the scrum a bit more, right? Ireland will try and attack with the scrum a bit more, but New Zealand do tend to play off it. And Australia, I haven't watched them for a while actually, so I'm not quite sure how good their scrum is, but they're always up or down. I often see the Australian scrum getting written off, and then it delivers a great performance, and then the following week gets rinsed. So it's but of all those three, South Africa are definitely the ones I worry about the most.
Just in terms of strength and depth, like the general consensus afterwards was that that front row is going to like Cian Healy might not be at this level anymore, but that doesn't seem to be what you're saying at all. If the referee had refereed that properly at the weekend, then we wouldn't actually be worried about the strength and depth in the scrum. So do we need to maybe take that one-off as a one-off and make sure that we're prepared for the next time that happens to cheat back or to influence the referee in a way? What's the truth about our strength and depth?
Look, I think it can. Our strength and depth can be better. We developed Porter into pretty much going up there to be into the world class category at tight head, and then we moved him back because we wanted himself and Tadhg on the pitch at the same time. So we need to figure out succession planning there. So we've got Finlay Bealham there. Tom O'Toole's I think he's injured at the moment, is he? And then so we've, as Lou said, with Porter and Cian, I think he's got a few more years left in him. As you said, I don't think one tough decision game suddenly means he's finished. It's I still back him. I thought aside from the scrum penalty decisions, I thought he had a decent game around the pitch. I remember him chasing down a scrum half at the back of them all during the game. He's still quite mobile, and he's as strong as ever. Below that, it's become there's a few cabs queuing up. Dave Kilcoyne obviously is on the bench the weekend. You got Ed Byrne. Lou said there needs to be kind of clear, second or third choice emerging. And there's a few guys putting their hands up at the moment. None of them have really got there yet. At tight head, below Tom O'Toole, you still have Martin Moore knocking around the Ulster. Keenan Knox down in Munster. So there needs to be an emergence of this guy's going to be third choice first.
Yeah, it's difficult to do because you can't really just pick somebody and work on them, or can you? Is that the right way to do that? It's like, okay, you're our number 3 guy, and so you're going to get more time. We're going to influence your local coaching ticket, and we're going to bring you into the Ireland squad, and that's it.
Yeah, look, you've seen that they bring guys into the training squad so they get an exposure and they get a taste for what it's for. But what all those guys really need is just consistent game time for their provinces. So to really kind of drive the competition, so at the Interpros they get a chance to put their hands up and see who's going to, get picked. But look, a lot of those guys are young, so we have a nice young crop coming up, but they need to, really put their hands up and start putting pressure on the guys above them.
All right, Mike, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, thank you.
It's Mike Ross giving us some insight into what we need to do to fight back the next time it happens to us.
Yeah, or come with a dark game plan. The only way Ireland are going to go far in this World Cup is by being hated.
In our pre-show meeting, Joseph was talking about Andy Lee one time, saying that if you get a low blow or a headbutt early in a fight, the only thing you can do is punch back in the balls or headbutt back, because that way the message is sent: we ain't taking this.
Yeah,
that's over. So cheat back.
It does seem, obviously, when somebody gets, especially when he's talking about that first technique that the English scrum were using at the weekend, that's a very, very hard thing to combat. I suppose the next scrum is your opportunity as opposed to within that one scrum.
Yeah, or to excuse me, sir, I hope you realise what they're doing here. I know you're such a beautiful, educated, you've got such a giant rugby brain, sir, that you can see that this front row is cheating, sir. Yes? En français? Tu peux le faire en français?
Maybe that's it.
Je peux pas.
Maybe that's it. Maybe.
No!
Maybe they need to learn French between now and then. But that's, I guess, if you're coming up against a French team,
Sexton should have enough from his year in Paris. No,
he should do
2 years.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, I guess if you come up against France next year with French referees, obviously something's wrong, and that would be a grave injustice.
I mean, look, stranger things have happened.